My partner and I had just moved into our dream home on a quiet, dead-end street. We brought along Rocky, our friendly and loyal dog. The house felt perfect, except for the empty, abandoned house to our right. Its owner had once started renovations, but the project stopped for no clear reason, leaving both our yard and that house without a proper fence in between. Behind the abandoned house was another property occupied by a young man. We often saw him cutting across the unfenced backyard. At first, we didn't think much of it. Maybe he knew someone here. On our first night, while enjoying the fresh air in the backyard, we noticed the man staring blankly at us from his window. His gaze was cold and expressionless, making him look like a living mannequin. He didn't blink for almost half an hour. Rocky began to growl softly, as if sensing something was wrong. Feeling uneasy, we went back inside. A few days later, while we were sitting outside, we heard the creak of wooden boards. The man appeared in our yard, holding a backpack and smiling awkwardly. He offered us a tablet he claimed to have found in the abandoned house, calling it a gift. We politely declined, trying to ease the tense atmosphere. He simply smiled, nodded, then walked toward our house and ran his hand along our front door handle before leaving. The way he acted, as though he had the right to enter our property, made our skin crawl. The terror escalated. One afternoon, while I was taking a shower, I heard a loud thud against the window. My partner, filming from the guest room window, caught him pointing toward our bathroom before running toward the abandoned house and slamming a hammer against each of its windows. Rocky barked nonstop. That night around 2 a.m., we heard knocking on our front door, followed by a strange, mocking whistle. We checked our doorbell camera, but there was no footage. Whoever it was must have left shortly after. The next morning, we found our doorbell had been removed, and its memory card was gone. Someone had clearly returned to our home, and we knew exactly who it was. We reported everything to the police, but they dismissed it. Our fear grew as the strange threats continued. One night, while we were watching a movie, we got a notification from an indoor camera facing the window. There he was, standing in the yard, wearing a ski mask and staring straight at us. He didn't move, just stood there for almost an hour, stroking the door handle of the abandoned house as if he had plans for it. We felt helpless. Every police report was ignored. We installed more cameras, locked every door and window, but the terror didn't stop. Strange chalk symbols began appearing on the sidewalk in front of our house, symbols pointing directly toward us. A few days ago, while checking the cameras, I saw him walking past our house. He stopped, pointed at our bedroom window, then switched on a small flashlight that shone straight toward us. His empty stare and faint smile were visible behind the mask. We don't know why we're his target or what he truly wants. All we know is this won't stop until something is done. This isn't about an ex-boyfriend or a stalker. It's about faces, strangers, suddenly recognizing me. And it all started on social media. After breaking up with my partner Ryan, I decided to erase every trace of us online. I didn't just block him, I deactivated my accounts, deleted old photos, and changed my number. I wanted to start with a clean slate. Ryan wasn't the possessive type physically, but he had a strange habit of measuring my life. He'd rate the things I did, how productive I was, how many books I read, even how efficiently I organized the house. At first, it felt like motivation, but over time, it became a suffocating pressure. 2 months after the breakup, I was scrolling through social media using a new account Ryan didn't know about. Suddenly, a comment under one of my old friend's posts caught my attention. The account was called The Observer. The comment was just one line, but it sent a chill through me. This look matches today's profile. I brushed it off. maybe just a coincidence. But it happened again. A woman at a bus stop suddenly complimented the shirt I was wearing. "Nice choice. 9 out of 10, she said, with a thin smile. Then, a man in my office elevator tilted his head at me and said, "You're not reading that book anymore. Switch to a different genre?" Those words, today's profile, 9 out of 10, switch to a different genre. They were all Ryan's favorite phrases. He had always rated everything, always noticed even the smallest change in my habits. How could complete strangers know these things? I began to think he wasn't physically stalking me, but tracking me digitally. Maybe he'd built a detailed profile of me and shared it online. I decided to reach out to Ryan's best friend, who was also a close friend of mine. I told him everything and asked if he could talk to Ryan. "That's impossible," he replied. Ryan just started working at a research facility overseas, remote, no internet access. He said he needed to disconnect from the outside world for a while. He wouldn't have time for a weird game like this. I didn't believe it, until a few weeks later, his friend posted a picture of Ryan on social media. Ryan looked thinner and paler, standing in front of an old building that resembled a digital rehabilitation center. The caption read, "Finally seeing the world again after 3 months offline. Welcome back." So it wasn't Ryan directly. Then who? The feeling never went away. I began to realize this wasn't about Ryan at all. It was about a system. One night, while walking home, a food delivery courier passing by whispered, "You can't hide from the analysis." I reached my apartment shaking. That night, I found a small envelope slipped under my door. Inside was a neatly handwritten note. "We recognize the pattern. You should know that." I fled to a small seaside town. I left my phone, laptop, and every online account behind. I just wanted to disappear. In my new town, I got a job at a little shop. Everything felt peaceful. Until one afternoon, a woman, a tourist on vacation, came into the shop. She browsed for a while, then looked at me and said, "7 out of 10. You're calmer now, but your anxiety patterns are still detectable." She gave me a thin smile. The same smile as the barista in my original story. The same look in her eyes. That's when I understood. Ryan may not have been personally tracking me, but he might have built a system or an algorithm based on his habits. This algorithm learned my life patterns from digital traces that never truly disappear. Old photos, location data, comments, and more. The system then paid random people to deliver specific messages whenever my pattern matched certain criteria. This wasn't stalking. This was a far more terrifying game of patterns. I felt like pure data, constantly analyzed, constantly evaluated. Now every face I pass feels like a data terminal, ready to deliver a message. I am no longer the subject of a person. I am the subject of a faceless system, one that learns from me and will never stop. My two friends, Rena and Kevin, and I rented a small secluded cabin. With a calm lake and pine forest surrounding it, the place felt like our own private paradise. At first, everything was perfect. We spent our days paddling a canoe across the crystal clear water, fishing for small catches, and enjoying campfires at night. We laughed, shared old stories, and felt completely at peace. But things began to change on the second night. Rena found a strange little notebook in the drawer of her nightstand. Instead of handwriting, it was filled with collages of cut-out images from old magazines. Eyes, keys, and a pair of hands holding a book. On the last page, there was handwriting that read, "Don't worry, I just want to make sure you're all doing okay." We figured it was some weird joke from the cabin owner. "Maybe they're just trying to show they care," Kevin said with a laugh. We went on with our trip, though a faint unease had begun to creep in. The next day, our suspicion grew. We found several water bottles in the kitchen with less water than we remembered, even though none of us had touched them. Kevin also claimed he saw the shadow of someone standing at the edge of the lake at dawn. But when he got closer, the figure was gone. Probably just a reflection, Rena tried to reassure him. But that unsettling feeling lingered. On the third night, we decided to lock every door and window as carefully as possible. Kevin, ever the logical one, said we should stay calm and gather evidence before calling anyone. Around 2 a.m., while we were all asleep in our separate rooms, the smoke detector in the kitchen suddenly went off, blaring loudly. We rushed in, panicked, searching for the source of smoke, but there was none. After turning off the alarm, we saw a small candle, half melted, sitting on the kitchen table directly beneath the smoke detector. "Someone's been in here," Rena cried, her voice trembling. I checked the front door. It was locked from the inside. The windows were also locked. It seemed impossible for anyone to have gotten in. Kevin double-checked every possible entry point, finding nothing. We began to wonder if the owner might be playing some sick prank. We decided to sleep together in the living room, leaving only the glow of our phone flashlights. I kept an eye on the front door, Rena watched the windows, and Kevin tried to get a signal to call the owner. Eventually, he got through. The owner, an elderly woman with a warm voice, sounded genuinely confused. She insisted no one else was on the property and said she would come early in the morning to check. While Kevin was still on the phone, we suddenly heard a loud scraping sound from the attic above us. It wasn't the light scurry of a rodent. It was heavy, as if someone was dragging something across the floor. Our hearts pounded. Kevin quickly ended the call, and the three of us exchanged terrified glances. The noise went on for a few minutes before stopping. Silence returned, but the fear didn't leave. We decided to leave immediately. Grabbing our bags and car keys, we ran outside. As I started the engine and backed out of the driveway, I glanced up at the cabin. In one of the small, dark attic windows, a pale face was peeking out from behind the curtain, staring at us with a blank expression. We never went back. The next day, the owner called to say she had found no signs of a break-in, but the attic door, which should have been locked, was slightly ajar. Near the attic door was a small doll with button eyes, positioned as if it were watching over the whole house. We all agreed never to stay in a rental cabin again. Ever since, whenever we hear a creak in the night, we can't help but wonder if someone's out there, watching us from the dark. Maybe that uninvited guest didn't just stay in the cabin. Maybe it followed us home.